Welcome to Find It tonight. I'm so excited. We have Brian Galke on, and he is the owner of Subtle Skills. And guess what he does? Yes, he does. He reads faces. So I'm a little nervous, like low-key nervous. Like, what do you see going on here? What do you see? But he is going to be on in just a minute to show us some of his subtle skills and talk about his life a little bit, but really delve into what he does to read faces. So hang tight. We're going to show an intro for Brian, and he will be right back with us. Brian, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm awesome. I'm so happy you're here. I've been looking forward to this and for you to tell us how you do what you do and how
Do we
you
have to talk about why it took so long to be out here? Because of how popular you are. I had to book out a month and a half in advance to be here. Like, look at you go.
Well, I'm only doing these shows once a week, so it was easy to get booked really quickly. I could have bumped someone off, Brian.
Yeah.
That's funny. But anyway, I really am interested in how you got to this point of doing what you do. So let's roll back the years a little bit.
Sure.
And talk about, can you hear me? Are you good?
Yeah,
Are we good?
I can hear you just fine.
Yep. Okay. So, roll back the years a little bit and let's talk about Brian as a youngster. So when you were in school and your personality and what path got you to where you are now?
Sure. So I don't know why. Okay, now it says we're swapping. I thought I froze for a minute. I was like, oh crap. You wouldn't believe it's always when I'm doing a podcast I have these issues, right?
Right.
Growing up, like I think I just froze again for a minute. Growing up, I was an introvert extrovert, meaning that I loved to be around people, but I was terrified of being around people at the same time because even though I would go to busy places, I didn't know how to interact with people. And so what does every good introvert do? I picked up books, and there's a lot of books that really helped me. I read books on NLP, learned about mirroring and matching and watching your language. What do you say to yourself? I picked up body language books to figure out like what's going on with other people. But in 2011, a friend of mine was supposed to come into town, and she's like, hey, I'm coming to town for a trade show. Let's do dinner. And I'm like, okay, cool. I get to dinner and she calls and she's like, I'm not going to make it. I'm like, oh, here we go. And I just sat down. She's like, no, you need to come over to this event. I'm like, no, I already sat down. I'm where we said we were going to be. It's the time, I'm not going to do it. And then she said, no, you need to come meet this guy. I'm like, okay. So I decided to close out and I took a cab over there. This was pre-Uber days, right? 2011. And I met my mentor, Mac. And when he sat down, she's like, he basically analyzes people's faces. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. Read palms too. And, I thought I'm going to bust this guy. And I was waiting for what they call Barnum Statements, which are very generic things that have happened to us all. Like, oh, you've had a hard time in life. Well, yeah, no crap. Who hasn't had a hard time in life, right? Or, somebody with a name that starts with M. I don't know. Everybody has a mom, So I was all prepared to like bust this guy. And there were 6 or 8 people sitting around the dinner table. And he started with me, he dissected me. And I'm like, oh. And then I waited. I'm like, oh, I'm going to catch him, though. He's going to repeat himself with these other people. And he picked different features on every single person. Wow. And it blew me away. And I was instantly hooked, like, oh, how do I find this? What do I do? And he happens to live in Fort Worth. I live in Dallas. And it just blew me away at this was something you could proactively use to understand people. So, I'd always pick professions that good introverts do. So I worked retail. I was a bouncer. Now look, the less you say, the cooler you are. I was a I was a bar back. I was a bartender. I was a server. All things that got me in front of people to get me around people. So I feed off people, but I was terrified to be around people. And that's actually a really hard life to live because people think because you're out, you're an extrovert, and you're not. So they put all these things and these assumptions on you that I didn't fit. So people thought, oh, I was outgoing, and really I was terrified to live in my own mind. And what changed for me is, if you've ever read the book Man's Search for Meaning, it is when you learn to start focusing on other people, you kind of get out of your own way. And that's exactly what this was. And hold on for 1 second. I'm going to kill some apps for a minute because I don't know why we're paused, but I am notorious for having about 85 tabs open on stuff while I'm working. So I'm stopping what I think could be the culprit, and I think we'll be good the rest of the time.
Okay.
But yeah, so this was the first thing that changed for me. And I was on the help desk. And once I learned to start focusing on other people, instead of listening to the voices, not the bad voices in your head, but those self-defeating voices, I got out of the prison of my own mind and into the present moment, because I wasn't thinking about me. I was focusing on the other person, thinking, how would I best speak their language? And that's when my life changed. I went from help desk to 9 other positions. I'm a regional vice president of sales for a technology company. Here's the ironic part. I sell technology to jails and prisons. And then what I also teach people is how to get out of the prison of their own mind. And both of those things require communication with other people. Because what we've learned is communication with others is what helps with recidivism. And I don't care if you're on the inside or you're on the outside, it has the same effect.
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Seriously. So I want to get into the face reading here pretty soon, but let's just back up a little bit. And what you said about what you just said makes then total sense, that this is something that other introverts who feel like they're a prisoner in their own side, like they want to be around. Okay. You're an introverted extrovert.
Right. They call it an ambivert. Right.
What does that mean versus what an introvert, just a solid introvert,
never wants to leave their house. Yeah. So they're hard to coax out of their house. You know, it's one of those things of they would prefer solitude to being around a crowd. And ambivert is somebody who loves to be around people, but doesn't always feel comfortable being around people at the same time. And it, like I said, it's a misnomer, because people think because I was out and I was traveling and I was doing all these things that I was an extrovert. And in reality, I wasn't.
Wow. And so by learning this technique and studying it like you did, being able to really focus on the people you're with and talking to, you're saying that that helped you feel more comfortable for yourself.
Absolutely. It got me because I was enjoying the moment instead of overthinking things in my mind. That's the big difference is, and it's no different when I started speaking on stages, which wasn't that long ago. It was like a little over a year ago, I started speaking on stages. I used to get up and my hands would shake and I was nervous. And somebody said, if you're up there and you're nervous, you're making it about you and not the benefit to your audience. Once I made that mental change, and with one of my coaches who also said, you need to memorize your first 90 seconds so that you can breathe and just go in autopilot, everything changed.
That is great. That's great information and advice also.
Yeah.
So, but okay, so all your whole life, you felt like I enjoy being around people, but I feel like I don't always feel comfortable. And is it sort of almost like insecurity is about yourself too, a little bit?
Oh, absolutely.
Like fitting in, or?
Yeah, it was, where do I fit in? I was raised, so I have siblings, but I was so much older than my siblings. I'm 7 years older than my youngest sibling, you know, or 6.5 to 7, and then 15 years between my next sibling. So even though I had a family and everything, I didn't have that close grow up with people. So I had friends growing up, right? But it was always that just felt a little bit out of place. Even now, it's weird to me to go and speak on stages in front of hundreds of people and somebody asks for a photo with me. Like, it's a weird thing, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm used to, I'd love to go to events. Like I am a attendee, like you would not believe. I went, you name it. If there's a conference out there, Secret Knock, Growth Con, you name it, I was there, but I was always sitting in the back. And part of that's because I also have recessed eyes, and people with recessed eyes, they like to sit back and evaluate, right? So there are certain things you can pick up on people.
I love it.
Yeah, based on their facial features. Cool. Yeah, but it literally, I would go to events, but I wouldn't talk to anybody. And if I did, it took me forever to get up the nerve. And look, it still kicks in. I went to an event in Vegas 2 weeks ago to speak in front of 200 people on Friday and 400 people on Saturday. But when I got there, I thought, okay, I'm going to go meet the host that I know. And he had already left the VIP dinner. And I'm like, oh shit, I have to talk to, I don't get to be introduced to people. I have to talk to people. And that kind of kicked in at first. And then what do I look for? I look for people with rounded eyebrows, because rounded eyebrows think about the people around them first and themselves second. So I look for rounded eyebrows because I know they're going to be my supporter.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I was excited to get into this. But also, so I read when I was reading up on you a little bit. So you went to college, and during college, I mean, you did well and you made friends and all of that. So it's the same, you going through your life. It's always been the same thing about kind of like, I made friends, but I made sure I was with the friends who were extroverts, and I just follow along, and right.
I hung out. I was a bartender like that. I worked my way through college being a bartender or a bouncer. So again, a bouncer, the less you say, the more mysterious you are.
Yeah.
And when you're a bartender, guess what? Everybody has to come see you, and everybody's happy to see you because you're bringing them alcohol. So, yeah.
There you have it. I get it. So you went all through college. I read where you had studied abroad.
Right. That was the biggest game changer of my life. If you've never had the opportunity to go where nobody knows who you are, you get to introduce yourself for the very first time. Ooh. Right. I mean, if you think about it, your entire life, Debbie, somebody's like, oh, this is Debbie who's da da da. This is Debbie who's da da da. When there's nobody to introduce you for the first time in your life, you get to introduce yourself.
Wow. And at that point in time, you had not learned facial analysis, but you went, and how did you handle that? How did you handle that? I mean,
it's actually
when was
really
the Brian you introduced to all these strangers that you were just meeting?
So you find what do people adapt and like, right? So let me tell you, you go anywhere and you say you're from Texas, people automatically like you. So I live in Dallas, Texas. Well, everybody likes the Dallas Cowboys at the time. So we're talking 1998. Walker, Texas Ranger was a cool show. People still knew who Dallas was, the TV show. So it was like being a celebrity just because of the location I came from. I'm from Texas. And I still, to this day, when I go, people are like, where are you from? I say Texas, because it's true. I do live in Texas. But that when you go international and you say Texas, you can say major cities, New York, right? Chicago, New Orleans, Las Vegas. But you say Texas and people are like, ooh, Texas, So
hello, big boy.
Exactly. Do you ride horses? Do you carry guns?
Yeah. You got your boots on? You packing heat? Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. So the person who introduced us, Brian, was this guy.
Yep. Joe.
Who is that, Joe?
Old Joe.
Oh my God.
You going the right way? No, I got moved to the other side. So I got to move back over here.
No, let me show. We're gonna pull up Joe, and I hope Joe. Well, he may see this later. I don't know that he's on right now, but let's show Joe Ingram for all the listeners that watch the messages come in when it's from the funny guy. Yes. This is who it is, and I was on War Games with you guys, so I've known you for a little bit. But what do you say about this guy right here? And I can let everyone get a good look, and then I'm going to pull up the picture, Brian, that you sent me.
Right. So I'll tell you what I tell every single person who has a beard, and you're going to see this as a repetitive theme today. Like, Joe needs to trim this upper area because we can't see his upper lip. And this is your personal lip. So when people see, is it full or is it flat? Then they know should I ask you personal questions or not? And people may go, this is bullshit. I'm sorry if I'm not supposed to cuss.
Oh, go ahead. I believe in free.
But we all say the phrase, keep a stiff upper lip. And what does that mean? Don't share your emotions. And the reason we say these phrases is because authors and artists used to take courses on what's known as physiognomy, which I might give away the big secret. It's called face reading. I say facial analysis because as soon as I say face reading, that's when they go, ooh, can you read palms also? Right. And so it's like saying, I'm not a cashier. I'm a financial transaction specialist. It's the same.
There you have it.
Right. So with Joe here, it's the same thing. I tell people trim that because if I can't see your upper lip, we don't know should we ask you personal questions? And so when people are upset, what do? They go, and they keep their mouth shut. And that's what can create that. And then on the opposite side of that, that's why the number one plastic surgery right now is lip enhancement.
Yeah. So how do you read someone that goes to, gets lips and Botox? And
well, so if they give lips, they're putting out to the world what they want. Look, your gender, has been doing this for, centuries, right? Lipstick, what does it do? Highlights the lips. You
Yeah.
can, through makeup, you can make your cheeks look wider. You can make your upper eyelid look fuller. I mean, there's all kinds of tricks with makeup that
Sure.
can change your facial features on what they look like.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so then you saw this, but then you sent me this one.
Right. So he's got that straight line down the center of his forehead. It's called the freight train line. And what that means is that's somebody that once they make up their mind, get out of their way, because once they make up their mind, they're going to do it anyway. If you try and stand in front of a freight train, you get run over. However, if you move with the freight train, you can help steer it. Right. So that's just, when you see that on somebody's face, if they get a wild, crazy idea like Joe does all the time, then you just let them run with it. But if you try and tell him all the reasons not to do it, he's just going to run you over anyway. Now, the other interesting thing about Joe is, what shape are his eyebrows?
They look kind of rounded, are they? I don't know. I can't see them.
Yeah. So go back to the other picture. He has what's known as chameleon eyebrows, because you can't see what they are.
I didn't even pay attention to that.
Oh, yeah. We naturally like things that are like us. So when somebody has chameleon eyebrows, we think, oh, he's just like me. Yep.
Oh my gosh, I did not. I'm like, wait, I couldn't find him when you said that. That's so crazy that I didn't even notice that.
So I didn't even send you this picture. I probably should, but if everybody goes out and Googles people without eyebrows, what shows up is insane, because it always shows you celebrities that you're like, oh, I know this person. I've been watching their movies for years, and they look like aliens. Like, they absolutely look like aliens if you can't see their eyebrows.
Well, you know what? This just popped in my head, and this is just funny to me. My daughter loved Dora the Explorer. She had everything Dora, and I bought her the stuffed doll. And she was looking at it, and she was like 2.5, and she goes, "Why Dora have no eyebrows?" And I go, "What?" And she goes, "Why Dora?" Because it's like, when you're teaching nose, eyes. Why Dora have no eyebrows? And I was like, oh my God, she doesn't have eyebrows. I didn't even notice. Tori should be a face reader.
Well, that's the whole thing. Is the reason she doesn't have it's probably because then we assume that she's just like us, right?
Gosh, yeah, that's so crazy.
So how much do you know about Scott Adams, who wrote Dilbert?
Nothing.
Okay, so a little tip, I listened to him on a podcast with Tim Ferriss. The entire reason why nobody in Dilbert has a last name is because we associate last names with people. But if you're just Dilbert, right? Oh, well, that's Dilbert. But if you gave Dilbert a last name, then we wouldn't feel like we're like Dilbert. But because it's just a first name, and we all have a first name. Yeah.
Like Oprah.
Crazy. Yeah. Like Oprah. Exactly.
Yeah. The one-namers.
Yep.
So what were you saying here? Your hollowed eyes?
Yeah. So I was talking about sorry, let me keep moving back here. This is a new one for me on a podcast. So what I was talking about is, you have eye angles and then you have eyebrows. So if you look there, look at the two different eyebrows I have. Yeah. So this is your personal side. I guess you guys can't see that. This is your personal side, and this is your professional side. And an easy way to remember that is, if I ask you, hey, are you married? It's a personal question. So the same hand that a wedding ring would be on, right, is
your personal side.
Right. And this is your professional side.
Okay.
So if you look at that picture, I'm pointing at my professional side. See that angled eyebrow?
Oh my
God. Guess what? I didn't go get that done. And I didn't go get my eyebrows threaded, or whatever the terminology is, right? That's just how my eyebrows changed over time. So I when I'm up on stage, I'm talking, I show my face first, because as soon as I tell people I can analyze faces, nobody wants to look at me. Right. So that's
what I was thinking. I was like, oh my gosh, I have my face all up in the screen. Yeah. I don't know what he's going to say. Okay.
Yeah, so literally, wow. Yeah. So I just talked about how we're all a little bit two-faced, and that's an example because we have a personal side, which is over here, and we have a professional side, which is on the other side.
That's cool. Well, this is my personal side. It'd be my right side. My business side, my eyebrow, like, she's a strong one.
Yeah.
This gal.
Yeah.
I mean, she like raises up a lot higher than the other one sometimes. When I get pictures back, sometimes I'm like, my goodness.
It's because in your business side, your professional side, it's what's my angle? Help me understand it so I can help other people. And when that angle's there, just like I have it, it is involve me in the process. Right. Okay. So the other thing that you have that's really unique is you have in between your eyebrows, see that space? That's called a self-will pad. So that means you could have a micromanaging boss and it really wouldn't matter, because you can't stop thinking what else you should be doing all the time anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, me?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's why you have this
Like,
face
I
in
doubt
between.
you can ask me to do something that I haven't already thought I should be doing or whatever.
Yeah.
That's funny that you said that.
Yep.
So now, okay. So I'm excited about all of this, and I'm just like gonna pop some more. Okay, so I'm gonna put some of these girls, these celebrities on here.
Right.
Okay. And I know if it's hurting your back or whatever and you
Nope.
can't,
I figured out I'm just gonna move my camera.
there you go. Okay. So I really only know the name of two of these girls. So let's just start top left. I don't know who that little
Yeah.
cutie is.
I isn't that the girl from Showman?
And then,
British Showman?
yes,
Scarlett Johansson. And then down below is
Thelma,
yeah,
right?
Thelma. And then is it Brandy, the last one?
Yeah, I think that's her name. She's
Yeah.
gorgeous.
Yeah. So it doesn't surprise me that all you picked up on were actors, because when you go to the next picture, what I did is I put arrows on all the
Okay.
things.
So do you want me to pull that picture up next?
Yeah, absolutely. So what everybody sees here is 4 celebrities, and I'm going to show you things on their face that what I see when I look at somebody. So every one of those arrows tells you something different about the person. So if we start in the upper left-hand corner, which is the girl from Showman, right? So everybody who's looking here towards my beautiful face, the lady on top by me. Well, so there's several things. So when you look at her eyebrow, you can see that her eyebrow with the top arrow up here, right? Her eyebrows kind of round out. So that's a rounded eyebrow. She thinks about the people around her first. The next arrow is the one that points right here. What you can see on the picture is she's got a fuller upper eyelid. So when you see that on somebody, that's a we person. So I was raised in the day and age of Dr. Seuss. So I make up rhymes like the more lid you see, the more they think in terms of we. So when you see somebody with a fuller eyelid, you want to use inclusive language. Hey, where are we going? What are we doing? I don't have a lot of eyelid, so I'm fine doing things by myself, but I'll invite other people to go with me, but it's not a requirement.
Yeah.
Right. That goes back to the introvert side of me. Then what the next part is, what every single person that you picked in this picture, and it was a subconscious thing when you did it, but they're all actresses. Well, it's not surprising because they all have high and wide cheeks. So in every one of them, their cheeks are so far out, they have what's called movie star cheeks. So it's like little golf balls in their cheeks way out here. And the reason that they are movie stars is back before we had CGI and everything else. Well, what they looked for were actors that when they walked out on stage, the light reflected off of their cheeks. And that's why they're called movie star cheeks. So what does that mean? They are used to getting a lot of attention from people. Well, attention is both good and bad. It's good if you want the attention, but getting attention also brings unwanted attention, number one. Number two, it brings out jealousy and envy in people who don't get the attention. So when you walk into a room, you get all that light reflecting off of your cheeks, you're getting the attention of the room, and other women can now feel like you stole their attention. So then there's disdain. So if you walk into a room, you start feeling that cold shoulder, you have to start giving some of that attention back to them through sincere compliments. Yeah.
So, and it's true. That's crazy. Every single one of them, it's like they have the same face structure.
Absolutely.
So like with lips there too, I mean, that's a little
They
bit.
all have the fuller upper lip, right?
Yep,
So I pointed at that. And so the reason why you see that is because, again, say the phrase, if I tell you, hey, Debbie, keep a stiff upper lip, what does that mean? Don't share your emotions.
Right.
So when you see somebody with a flatter upper lip, if you're in sales like I am, then I know I could just do a sale and they're fine with it being a transaction. But if I do a sale with somebody who has a fuller upper lip and I don't ask them about themselves and I treat it as just a transaction, then I've made a sale, but I've lost a customer because they feel used. Oh, so you don't care about me? You just want my money? And literally, our faces are maps that tell us how to maneuver the terrain, right? And so what people misunderstand is people think that faces are about judgment, and it's not. Learning to understand a face is really learning about giving grace to somebody else because you're not judging them. You're learning to understand them.
That's incredible. What percent? I mean, it's not like, is it scientifically proved? I mean, not everything is 100% accurate,
not.
right?
No, it's high 90s. So it's no different than I used to have a roommate who was left-handed, right? And so one of the first things I always look at people is, what hand is your watch on? Well, most right-handed people, because you write with your right hand, their watch is on their left. Now, my roommate, who was a left-handed, he still wore his watch on his left hand. And the reason why, that's where his dad wore his watch. And so the thing about it is, Nothing is 100%. And that's the entire reason why it got kind of taken out of mainstream education, was that at the time of what's known as phrenology was bumps on the head. And what they said was, if you have a bump right here, you're a criminal. And they started judging people and saying, oh, that's your character, and putting them in prison because they had a bump on their head. And when that got thrown out, because it wasn't scientifically proven that somebody's going to be a criminal just because they have a bump right here on their head, face reading went out at the exact same time. So this used to be taught in mainstream schools, and then it disappeared for a very long time, because it also was a thing of the royalty didn't like the idea that the peasants could figure out the same things that they did. So it literally, and this is where it's going to go really far down a rabbit hole, right? We've been taught our entire life on how to read faces. We just haven't been formally trained, unless you ran across my mentor or me. And that's because, think about all the books you had to read in school, right? How does an author describe the characters in their book?
Oh, yeah.
Through their actions and through their facial features.
Yes.
And that's because they used to take courses on physiognomy, on how to describe the characters in their book. Edgar Allan Poe, you name it, used to take courses on it. It's the exact same thing, because not only did authors do it, but artists did it as well, because they didn't know how to draw characters for books. So why do you think all villains look the same? Why do all heroes look the same? You can turn on any Disney movie you want, and you can put it on mute. You know, that's a hero, that's the villain.
Yes. Wow. That's crazy. Do you even look at people's ears?
Do look at ears. But I don't focus on it. As a matter of fact, it's the last thing I teach in my course, because I can't see your ears right now. Right.
Yeah.
And so I have to tell you to turn. And so ears are hard to see. Now, here's where ears can come in. You're looking at facial proportion. So if you look at somebody's entire face, do they have large eyes? Do they have small eyes? Do they have, and in proportion to their face, do they have large ears or small ears? Well, I look for that first, and the larger somebody's ears are and the smaller their eyes are, that means they're auditory. So you'd say things like, hey, does it sound like a good idea? Do you hear where I'm coming from? You would use auditory language. If they're more visual, like I just met somebody for dinner, I was helping her figure out her business, because she's going into sales. Well, she's got huge eyes and little ears. And I'm like, okay, well, you're going to probably say something. Yeah, visual. Exactly. So I'm a visual person. So it's so dumb. When I talk to somebody on the phone, I hang up and I go, all right, I'll see you later.
Yeah, I do that.
You know? Yeah, but you're not going to see them. But if you're visual, that's how you take in the world. But is it 100%? Absolutely not. Because some people may have, my ex-wife has an ear problem. So she's visual at times, right? But you kind of play with people. But people will tell you what they are in their everyday language. So I just taught a class on how to dissect somebody's interviews. And this one CEO, he said, well, we're going to have to stand up and make things happen. And once we get out, we're going to be up front running, and then once we wrap our hands around it, so then that's a kinesthetic person. So if you're talking to them, you're going to use hands-on action words to speak their language. So let me give you the most simple analogy. I mentioned going to Italy. Before I went to Italy, I was the obnoxious traveler, right? And that was, I went everywhere and everyone should speak English. And if they don't, I'll speak louder, because somehow that's going to fix the problem, right? But my world changed when I learned basic phrases, because when you try, people want to help.
Yeah.
And so if you go everywhere I go, I learn basic phrases. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, you name it. And then when you try that and you need help with something, people will help you. Or I'll give you a different analogy. I went to a wedding a year and a half ago at Jekyll Island. And our server came over and he was filling up our water glass, and his name badge said Hungarian. Well, I've been to Budapest. So I got on my phone. I looked up how to say thank you in Hungarian. Nice. And so next time he came around to fill up my wine glass, I said, Köszönöm. And he goes, what? And I said, Köszönöm. He goes, you speak Hungarian? I said, well, I've been to Budapest and I wanted to say thank you. Guess whose wine glass wasn't empty the rest of the night?
Ah, yeah. Well, it's a common courtesy, just being kind and appreciating other people.
Well, and it wasn't even just me who benefited. Everyone at my table benefited, because he felt seen and heard. So there's 4 basic human emotions. That is physical safety, emotional safety. People want to feel seen and heard, and people want to feel connected. So because I said Köszönöm, I made him feel seen and heard. And that created a connection where he wanted to make sure everybody at my table was taken care of. But the other tables benefited as well, because he felt seen. So he wasn't just our server, AKA servant.
Yeah.
He was a person. And so that's what really it's about, is When you're learning to focus on somebody else, you make them feel seen and heard. And that's why I always teach eyebrows, like the cheat sheet. I forgot to send you my QR code, but I'll see about popping one up here in a minute. But
Okay.
the cheat sheet that I give away is eyebrows, because eyebrows lead to eye contact. And that's where you can cheat. If you're nervous, you're like, I don't like making eye contact. Well, you just look at their eyebrows and you think, well, what shape is it? Are they straight? Are they rounded? Are they angled? And while you're doing that, you're getting credit for eye contact.
And you're analyzing the eyebrows.
Exactly.
What do straight eyebrows mean?
Get straight to the point.
Oh.
So facts, figures, data, stop talking and say, what else can I get you?
Wow.
Yep.
So like Joe has the 2 like tracks. What about
Right.
people that just have 1? Is that the same?
Well, no, Joe has that one down the center. So if you
Okay.
pop up the very first picture of Joe,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's easy for you to pop up or not. Now I'm
Yeah.
putting you on the spot. Look at that one that's right in the center.
Yeah.
Like, sorry, let me move my camera here. The one that's right down the center, that's the freight train line. The ones he has beyond that, when you see more than 2, those are perfectionist-like tendencies in people.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Oh my gosh. Okay. So I want to know, have you ever come across someone that immediately, I mean, what are some, I don't want to say this really to
What are
make
some ones to
it,
stay away from? I'll save you. For
yes,
okay. If I asked you to describe a witch, could you draw what her facial features are?
probably.
Pointed chin,
Yeah.
downturned nose,
Yep.
angled eyebrows.
Yep.
Yeah.
Angled like this. I mean, where they come straight down. I don't know.
They're very angled, right?
Oh, up and over. Okay.
Yes, they go up like Spock and then down. So
Okay.
like my angled eyebrow, it means that I need to understand it first. So it's not about just one feature all the time. It can be about several features. So for example, if somebody has, it's called a cluster. If somebody has an angled eyebrow and they have a downturned nose, that's literally them blocking people from stealing their air, right? I know it's crazy. Think about it. But that
You're
downturned
sucking
nose.
the life out of
Yeah.
me, people.
And then the pointed chin. And so you see that in most villains in TV shows. And what do most villains do? They care about only what they're after, not what everybody else is there for.
Wow. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. It's not cool, but it is cool. Let's just
Well,
say
it's cool to be able to identify things. But
Yeah.
that's why I call it awareness and grace versus judgment, right? Like, so I mentioned earlier, something that used to drive me nuts is being interrupted by somebody, because I'm like, well, you're effing rude. But what I realize is people whose eyebrows are close to their eyes, they understand things very fast, and they just want to help you get there as fast as they did. So when somebody interrupts me, rather than getting riled up, I look at their face. I'm like, okay, well, they got low eyebrows. They're trying to help me get there. And so that's where the grace part comes in.
Yeah. Because truly, I guess these are the features that we were given. It's all connected.
Ah,
And
so
we're
that
going to have, no?
you're partially correct. What you inherit is genetics, but what you experience in life is called epigenetics. So the example I like to give when I'm talking is, if you've ever met the dude who's all buff up top and got little tiny legs,
Yeah.
right? That's not genetics. That's what muscles he chose to move, right?
Yeah.
Well, our face is no different. Our face is made up of 42 muscles, and our parents weren't lying when they said, if you keep making that face, it'll get stuck that way. So literally, our face
We'll
has
get
changed
stuck
over
that
time.
way.
Yeah. And that's why, and this is a little bit morbid, but if you've ever seen somebody with a stroke, or if you've been to an open casket funeral, when all that muscle tension is gone, we don't recognize that person.
That's so true. It's
Mhm.
absolutely true.
Oh, yeah.
That is so cute. Now that we know that when our parents said, don't do that, your face is going to get stuck that way, they really
Absolutely.
meant it. That's so funny.
We say phrases every day that are about face reading. So when we say take one on the chin, that's because chins talk about adversity. So it's literally a boxing term of how much of a beating can you take, right? Can you take one on the chin or not? Well, that's why people with small chins, criticism cuts them to the core. It's like you're yelling at them the entire time. Or if somebody grows out the long beard, like the movie 300, that's why the actors grew out the long beards, is because they were the 300 fighting against thousands of people.
So they wanted to appear or look like
Yes.
they had more going on there.
Yeah,
Okay.
like they had stronger chins to handle more adversity.
Got ya.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What does I have a little divot right here. Is it
Yeah.
called a
So
cleft?
that's the highly adaptable cleft. So that means we can pretty much throw you in any situation and you're going to adapt on the fly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome. I like this show. How y'all doing out there? You like the show? You can ask him questions if you want. I don't have to be the only one asking questions if you want to get in on this. Okay, so I'm going to pull. I can't believe we've already been on here 35 minutes, Brian.
I know.
What? I want to pull up. This is going to be, to me, it's funny, not funny again. It's like one of these things, but I really do want to pop this up there.
Sure.
Okay.
So everybody's pretty familiar with that, right? For recently. Yeah. And so there's still things that you can see about their face. Now, what's ironic is what I teach is more of resting facial features. Now, there is the show Lie to Me that you mentioned earlier, which is that's reactive. That's like body language for the face. And my problem with that is then I feel like I'm always waiting for their face to be like, oh, what'd they do? What'd they do?
Wait, I want to see you when you're saying that. Explain that again.
Sure.
So the show that I was talking about, Lie to Me, where the guy was analyzing face after a police officer would ask him questions, and then he was trying to find deception. Tell me that again. Right.
So that is facial movements that are within like a half a second. So it's a sudden of the face. And that's why they're called micro expressions, because it's not a big smile. It's it's called leakage. So when you're trying to keep a stoic face, but you find like, oh, I'm gonna get away with something, you're gonna do the sly smile, or the salesman smile. It's little quick body, instead of body language. We're all very familiar with what do crossed arms mean and what is everything else, but it's little micro expressions that are called leakage in the face. So everybody should watch the show Lie to Me, but go and Google Paul Ekman, then Lie to Me. And what it is he's the scientist who created the micro expressions, study what you study on micro expressions. He was the one who consulted for the show. That's what the show is based around, was his studies. And he taught all the actors how to do the basic information. That's
cool. That's really cool. Okay, I'm going to pull.
Ekman, Ekman.
Ekman. So he's the science behind the show. And that would be, you gave me a little thought. When I watched that show, I didn't think about all the actors had to know the little micro, how to do that in their acting. That's incredible. Okay, I'm going to pop this picture back up. Okay, so with this, you can still see things about their faces.
Absolutely. And that's what I love about this. This is the first proactive skill. So let me talk about, once I learned this, we talked about how I went from help desk to regional vice president. But even when I was flying around, I was part of a demo group that any customer over $1 million, we had to go out and do a presentation for. I could sit in my hotel room and I could test my product, I could test my PowerPoint and my projector, but people were always the unknown. But if I knew who we were meeting with, I could look them up ahead of time and figure out, are they auditory? Are they visual? What does their face say about them? So that when you see somebody's face, and you're going to see more arrows here again in a second, that is how do I speak their language, right? What does their face tell me about them? And it can be used both proactive and reactive, because I can go right into a networking event where I don't know anybody, and I just go and look for these things. So we'll start with Johnny Depp here, right? So with Johnny Depp, the first thing I point to is in his forehead, those two arrows up here, those are called Einstein lines. Now you see this on a lot of actors because each of those lines has to be earned over time. But what do they have to do? Memorize scripts, right? Mm-hmm. But when I see one solid line all the way across, that's the Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hours of practice or study. And I was at the Ritz here in Dallas. This was probably a year ago. And this couple was like, oh, what do you do? I said, I'm a speaker. I teach facial analysis. They're like, yep, bullshit. And I said, well, okay. I said, I don't know what you do for a living, but I can tell you that I see that deep of a line on attorneys, engineers, and doctors. I said, but it's usually somebody who's been doing intense, deep study for a long period of time. And his wife laughed and smacked his arm. She's like, yeah, he's a neurosurgeon. I'm like, well, there you go. So is it always that accurate? No, but it tells me about personality. So faces are all about understanding, not about judgment. So the first two lines is, I know he's deep, intense study on at least two subjects. Now, if you see a lot of those lines, then you know that's not a bullet points person. So if you're talking to them, you need to give them a lot of information. You can start with bullet points, but you might as well give them the entire user manual because they want to understand the inside and outside of things. Mm-hmm. The next part I talked about is his eyebrow. See how it's almost on top of his eye?
Yeah.
Now I'm going to take off my glasses for this. So the eyebrow on top of the eye is people who understand things very fast. But what he also has is he has high ears. So if you imagine the two ways that data gets into our brain, right, is through our eyes and through our ears. So if you have high ears and you have low eyebrows, then you understand things twice as fast as most people.
What? Let's say, wait a minute. If you say that again.
Sure.
I don't have this.
Actually,
I need you to
perfect. This is actually perfect. You have high eyebrows, so it takes you a minute for it to sink in.
Yeah.
Low eyebrows are right on top of the eyes. They understand things very fast.
Yes.
But he also
my mom has her eyebrows are really close to her eye.
Yes. And so they understand things and very fast. Then if you have high ears at the same time, then you're like a double threat because you can hear things fast and you see it. So it's like double threat of understanding things twice as fast as other people.
Double threat. Okay, let's pull it back up so you can continue to analyze.
All right. So then you look at, he's got low eyes and high ears. So he's very quick-witted, right? He understands things very fast. Now, if you watch the trial, that's not a surprise because some of his answers were just awesome and how fast he was quick-witted when they would ask a question like, you know, the mega pint and everything else that was on the show.
Exactly.
Now, here's the interesting one. The arrow pointing at his nose. So the arrow pointing at his nose is that crease in the ridge of his nose there is he has a hard time delegating things to other people. And so what you'll see that on people is it's a lot of flaring of the nose over time, thinking like, God, I'm always the one who has to do that. And that's what creates the crease in his nose. And then the last part is his upper lip here, no different than what I was telling you with Joe and other people. He actually needs to trim that so we can see his upper lip. When the hair covers up that upper lip, we don't know how approachable somebody is.
Gotcha.
Now, so if he wasn't a celebrity, would you want to walk up and immediately talk to him? Probably not.
I know. No, he doesn't look welcoming to me. Like he doesn't.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why. So then now looking over at her, you were asking about the straight eyebrows before. Well, look at her. She has straight eyebrows on both sides. So get straight to the point. Facts, figures, data. Now, what's interesting is on her professional side where all the arrows are, look at how her eyebrows trail off, right? That is, eyebrows are like indicators of interest. So when they start to thin out, so does their attention. And so when you see something like that, she's great at starting stuff, but her follow through is not the best.
Gotcha.
And I do believe, like with Believe in Yourself in the comments, yes, I think of 21 Jump Street as well as the first show I ever watched. So then the next part down is she's got a little bit of space between her eyebrow and her eye. So she doesn't understand it as fast as Johnny does, right? So she needs a little bit of time. Then down, I was pointing at her nostrils because if I say, hey, take a deep breath, most people go through their nose. And so nostril size is actually an indicator of like where they the bigger risk taker because they can get more oxygen into their brain on that side. So is it larger on their personal side or on their professional side? So if you think about athletes, right, when they're on the sideline, they need help. What do? They give them oxygen because when you get more oxygen, you can perform better. So our nostrils will actually adjust over time. So if you see somebody whose nostrils are almost pinched shut, they think in terms of scarcity. Whereas people whose nostrils are huge and open and rounded, they think in terms of abundance because they got plenty of air.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Now, pointing at her mouth, the reason I did that is see how she's kind of frowning and moping at the same time. So she's kind of, Well, when you do that enough times, it creates, instead of an even smile, it creates that little downturned mouth that you'll see. So if she keeps doing that, she'll have a downturned mouth. Well, when we see somebody with a downturned mouth, they distrust other people. So it's one of those things that they naturally, if you see somebody with a downturned mouth, they kind of think everybody's full of it and that everybody has to prove themselves. So, yeah.
And then what about her? Do you want to talk about her chin?
Yeah, she's got a smaller chin. So like we talked about before, is this, how do you handle adversity? The smaller the chin, the less you handle adversity well.
Wow. That is just so crazy good. Like it's so interesting to me that our actual facial features and how it changes over time.
That's exactly
with our experiences. I really thought about that.
Well, that's why you can take identical twins, and I'm going to reach out a frame here for a minute, but like I still carry around. This isn't the actual book because I just got in. My other book is with me. This is my backup book. So is it learnable? It absolutely is. I got this book in 2012. This is a more recent one, but you basically go through the book and you can learn the different facial features. I'm working on updating the book because what they do not have is that he doesn't do a good job of highlighting what the features are.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that is hard is he just, instead of I say rounded eyebrows, because I think about the people around them, he just says curved eyebrows. And so I put mine more of phrases of how can you actually read the feature? And when you see it and you say it, you know what the meaning is. And that's my specialty is I'm good at breaking things down into more digestible content.
Okay, so I wasn't going to do this, but I want you to analyze. So here is my daughter and myself.
Sure.
Okay, so
see, her eyebrows are more straight.
Yeah.
And then other things. So you both have a little bit of flatter upper lip. So we're not going to immediately ask you guys personal questions until you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
You both have the high and wide cheeks. So then we were talking about the attention before. Look at how it looks like golf balls in your cheeks there.
Yeah.
So that's why you get attention when you come into a room, right? Neither one of you has a lot of fuller upper eyelids. So you're fine doing things by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
She's got dimples. So dimples are consensus builders. Now you have them as well, but you can't see them in that picture.
Yeah.
So that is a genetic thing that actually is a consensus builder. So you can't grow a dimple. It just helps you, right? Kind of like Joe didn't choose not to have eyebrows. That's just, that is a genetic part.
Yeah.
But so that's where that genetics does kick in. But then there's the epigenetics of what happens to us afterwards. And that's why you can even have identical twins who have the same parents, right?
I don't know what I did there. Yeah.
And
you can have identical twins. Okay.
Right. But there'll be subtle different faces will differentiate subtly because even though they have the same genetic code, they're raised by the same parents, but maybe they got along with one parent better than the other, or maybe one did awesome in academics, the other one was good in athletics. So you can have disappointment lines and things depending on, is it your external world? Was it your professional like sports, or did you suffer romantically? Is it on this side of your face? So you can literally have all these things. And what you learn is to appreciate people's journey, because it literally is our face is a map of where they've been. It doesn't tell me, are they a cheater? That's the number one question I get. I don't know why everybody's so obsessed with finding out if somebody's a cheater, but that's the number one question. And like nothing about their face says that they're a cheater, but your face can tell you if they've got a wide area right here, then they are very physically demonstrative. And so they like physical touch, right?
Yeah.
So there are things about it, but it doesn't describe character, just preference of how do they want to be interacted with.
That is so cool. I have enjoyed this so much. What all do you have going on? So I hear you just came back from a 400 plus. You were on stage in Vegas, right?
My next one is called Haste and Hustle. And this is where I should, so everybody just go to Subtle Skills. That's the easiest way to find me.
Yes, please do. Everybody go to subtleskills.com.
I'm going to try something. I have never done this before, so we're going to see if it'll work. But let me see if I can put my QR code through my phone up here and if it will show or not. Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I gotcha.
Look at that. You got me covered, right? So let me see if it'll work.
I already have your digits.
Fantastic.
But I'll keep it like that.
Yeah. So if you that QR code that's up there, basically, that leads to where you can get the 3 eyebrows cheat sheet, and that's what we talked about earlier. And that is the basic one. Why do I teach eyebrows? Because every introvert's afraid to make eye contact, and so once they learn how to make eye contact, that's what changes things. Because again, people want to feel seen and heard, and people want to feel connected, and that's what it creates.
So true. I mean, that really is true. And the fact that this helped you be more comfortable in crowds and more comfortable in your skin, it's just a cool thing that other people who are like you can say, oh my gosh, I want to do that so I can be more comfortable too.
Well, it's beyond that. That's the mission behind it is I know what it's like to sit in the prison of your own mind out in public, right? And nobody gets it because now you're in solitude, but you're surrounded by other people. But it can also be used to help deepen the relationships you already have with other people because you learn to look at people differently, right? Like, so I do this for fun. I'll work corporate events like President's Club and stuff, and they'll bring me in to just read faces, right? So I teach this, but I also do it for fun. And when I do that, people are like, why do we have to have a marriage counselor? I'm like, well, yeah, your face is literally telling you what to say the entire time. But the important thing is this can be learned. And how can people benefit? You can proactively research people so you don't feel like you're doing a cold call. You feel like you're doing a warm call when you meet someone. I would go before I went to events like Steve Sims' event. I had him add me to the Facebook group. And when people are like, hey, I'm so excited to be there, I took pictures of their faces. And then when I walked in, I felt like I was meeting old friends instead of walking into a cold environment.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. For team building, team bonding, what does my coworkers' faces say? And of course, I'm in sales. it's a no-brainer for salespeople. A freaking no-brainer.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
Yeah,
Like
you
said earlier, if it's a person who really wants you to ask about the family and not just close the deal.
Yeah.
100%. So interesting. I have enjoyed this so much. And I'm so proud of you. Now knowing your story and understanding that, this is how but the other thing is, let's be real. You have done hours and hours and years of study.
Right.
So it's like what you can do to read a face isn't like what someone else after just thumbing through it are going to be able to do. I mean, you've done this since like 2011.
Yes and no. I know everything about the face, but you can learn basics. Go take the cheat sheet and it'll change your life, because eyebrows lead to eye contact. Then sign up for the course, because the course is, I took everything and I broke it down and created videos and pointed at it. But what you do is no different than like when I was a bartender. You learn to make drinks by learning to make a drink and then you add to it. So you go out and you test eyebrows, then you come back and you learn something else. So you're right. Have I been doing it for 10 years? Yes. But like either through the cheat sheet, the book, or my course, can you learn it? Absolutely.
It's just sure. Yeah. I guess my point to it is you're not going to be like a superstar subtle skills.
No, but you know why it's called subtle skills? Nobody knows the reason the company's name Subtle Skills is nobody knows you're doing it.
Yeah.
So that's the entire reason why I call that. I have the website Learn to Read Faces, right? But it's a subtle skill because nobody knows that you're doing it, but you still benefit from it. And to answer your last question, in August 15th or September 15th, I get to speak on the same stage as Richard Branson and Steve Sims.
Gosh, where's that? Where are you going?
In Austin. It's called Haste and Hustle.
Okay.
And, I'm talking like Richard Branson's I've spoken at 4 of Steve's events. So like, don't get me wrong, Steve is still, but now I'm like, it's Steve, but it's Richard Branson.
Yeah. Old buddy, old pal. Well, how do people go to this event? Who are they selling tickets to?
hasteandhustle.com.
Okay. So it's just open for anybody who would like to go?
Anybody who's up for it. And then I end up speaking at Brad Lee's events. That's Closer School Live or closerschoollv.com. But you can just go to Subtle Skills. I post where I'm going. Yep. Okay. IG is where I post the most. So look, if you don't want to sign up for anything, you don't want the cheat sheet, you don't want to give an email address, just follow Subtle Skills on Instagram.
Yeah.
Because I post tips and videos all the time.
Yeah. And I follow you and I enjoy that. That's really cool. And to see your journey, and there for a while, you were going all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
So that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, okay. I appreciate you, Brian, so much. And thanks to all of our listeners and viewers that came in to the show with us tonight. And as always, we certainly appreciate you. And I will see you all again next Wednesday at 8 p.m.
Bye, y'all.
Len, let's do the outro.